The first thing you learn in an ICU is that machines are honest. The monitor beside my head beeped my heart rate to the whole room, and there was nothing I could do to make it lie. 71, 72. The smell was iodine and floor wax. There were wires taped to my chest over a bruise where they'd pressed the paddle's cousins into me 2 days before, and a tube in my arm and a clip on my finger, and I had never in 52 years felt so much like a thing being kept running. Elena arrived at 4 p.m. I heard her heels before I saw her, and my heart rate went up 4 beats, because that's what her heels had done to me for 6 years. Then I saw the suitcase. It was the Rimowa. $4,000 of aluminum packed full, wheeled to the foot of an ICU bed. She stood there, sundress, airport hair, sunglasses pushed up on her head, and she squeezed my foot through the blanket. The foot, that was the touch I got. "Baby, don't be dramatic, okay? The doctors said you're stable. And the Maldives thing is non-refundable. And honestly, this," she gestured at the room, at the wires, at me, "this energy is a lot for me right now. I can't heal you by getting sick myself. I need to protect my peace. You understand?" The monitor said 88. She didn't look at it. She kissed 2 of her fingers, pressed them somewhere near my shin, and told me she'd left the fridge stocked. The wheels of the suitcase squeaked once on the polished floor at the door. Then she was gone, and the monitor and I sat there together, and it counted for me while I couldn't. I need to tell you about the heart attack first, and about her, in that order, because the heart attack is what made me finally see her, and I want you to see her the way I did, late and clearly. They call it a widowmaker, full blockage of the left anterior descending artery. I was in my office on a Tuesday when it happened, and I want to describe it without drama because it doesn't need any. It is not a sharp pain, it is a weight. It is a grown man sitting on your chest, and then 2 men, and your left arm going strange and distant, like a bad phone line, and a cold sweat arriving all at once, like your body already knows something your mind is refusing to file. And the fear is not like other fear. Every fear I'd ever had before was about something. This was fear about everything, all at once, ending. I remember lying on my office carpet while my assistant screamed into the phone, staring at the ceiling tile, one tile, water-stained in the corner, thinking with perfect clarity, "I am not done. Please, I am not done." I'm told I died for a little under a minute in the ambulance. There's no poetry to report from the other side. There's just a gap in the tape. And when I surfaced in the cath lab, then the ICU, stented and wired and weak as a kitten, I wanted one thing. Not my company, not my accounts. I wanted my wife to hold my hand. That's the whole confession. A 52-year-old who built himself from nothing, who employs 140 people, wanted his hand held. The body strips you down to what you actually are, and what I actually was that night was terrified and married. Elena. We've been married 6 years. She was 32 when we met, funny and bright and hungry for the world, and I was a widower of 4 years who had forgotten what it felt like to be looked at. I don't apologize for falling. She made the fall easy. She was good at that part. And I gave her everything, gladly. The house, my house, built before her, though she redecorated it twice. The Range Rover, leased new every 2 years. The cards, the trainer 5 mornings a week, because wellness is a lifestyle. I thought I was funding a partnership. Every month I wired money at the exact same rate a man waters a garden, and I never once checked what was actually growing. Her visit with the suitcase lasted by the hospital's own visitor log 11 minutes. My sister Ruth stayed 6 hours that same night in a plastic chair, holding my hand while I slept. Remember Ruth, she matters. Day 3, I asked Ruth to bring me a tablet from the house so I could triage business email. 140 employees don't stop needing payroll because your artery had opinions. She grabbed the iPad from the kitchen counter, Elena's iPad, as it turned out, though there was no way for Ruth to know. Same model as mine, same charging spot. I opened it to log into my email, and I never got there. The Messages app was synced to her phone. iCloud does that. She'd set it up herself years ago and forgotten, the way you forget a window you never look through. And the messages were arriving live from a resort in the Maldives, time zone 9 hours ahead, where it was already tomorrow. The thread at the top was a name I knew, Dimitri, her trainer. 5 mornings a week. Wellness is a lifestyle. I'm not going to recite the texts. I'll tell you the 3 that mattered. The first was a photo from the resort, the 2 of them, his arm around her, her laughing into her shoulder, an infinity pool behind them, sent to her sister with the caption, "Finally, don't say anything, obviously." The second was older. I scrolled up. The thread went back 14 months, 14. But the one that stopped me was dated the night of my heart attack, from the hospital parking lot while I was in surgery. Elena to Dimitri. "You won't believe this. He had a heart attack today, of all weeks. If this cancels the trip, I'm going to lose my mind." And his reply, "Is he going to be okay?" And hers, 4 minutes later, "They said probably. Anyway, I'm still coming. I've earned this." I want to describe what that does physically to a man whose literal heart is freshly stapled together, because the metaphor and the muscle were in the same room for me. The monitor gave me away again. The nurse actually came in, looked at the number, looked at me holding the iPad, and quietly checked my lines. There's a specific pain that isn't cardiac, but presents in the chest anyway. Grief has an address, and it's behind the sternum. Mine was already a construction site. I cried in that bed. I'm not going to pretty it up or pretend I went cold instantly like some machine. I was a man with wires taped to my chest, crying as quietly as possible so the nurse wouldn't come back. Scrolling through 14 months of my marriage's real accounting. The trip, booked on my Amex, the resort, the seaplane transfer, the couples massage, line-itemed on cards I paid without reading, because reading them would have meant not trusting her. Ruth came at 8 p.m. She saw my face, then the iPad, and read exactly 4 texts before she put it down. She said one sentence, "Tell me what you need." Here's the thing nobody tells you about heartbreak on a heart monitor. You can watch yourself finish crying. Somewhere around midnight, the tears just stopped. Not because the pain ended, because it changed state. Water to ice. I lay there watching the monitor, and the number came down. 80, 75, 71. Steady. My body made the decision before my mind signed off on it. We are done bleeding for this person. We have a limited number of heartbeats left. I had just received a formal notice to that effect, and not one more of them would be spent on Elena to peace. The doctors wanted me 5 more days. I gave them 2. The cardiologist argued. I signed the against medical advice form with a steady hand and a promise to do the cardiac rehab, and I meant it, and I have kept it every session since. Do not mistake what I did next for recklessness. It was the opposite. It was the most carefully scheduled week of my life. Ruth drove me home. I walked into my house, 11,000 square feet, glass and stone, her renovations, her fabrics, her aesthetic, and I stood in the foyer with my hospital bracelet still on, and I understood something I'd been paying not to understand for years. None of it was a home. It was a set, her set. I was the financing. I made 2 phone calls from the kitchen island, standing next to the empty spot where her iPad usually charged. The first was to my lawyer, Gerald, who has handled my affairs for 20 years. I told him everything, and he was quiet. Then he was precise. The house, mine, purchased 4 years before the marriage, kept separate, never retitled. She'd asked twice. Some instinct in me had deflected twice, and I will never mock instinct again. Removing a spouse's belongings to it, carefully to paid storage,
with everything documented, defensible, he said, not friendly, survivable. The divorce petition, drafted now, filed the morning she landed. The affair's paper trail, my cards funding it, preserved, screenshotted, backed up twice. Everything runs through me from here, Gerald said. You don't call her. You don't text her. You are a man quietly recovering from a heart attack. Be exactly that. The second call was to a moving company, white glove service. They asked the size of the move. I looked around the living room and said, one person's entire life. She's a heavy packer.
Alana's trip was 10 days. I had 8 left. Here is how you dismantle a parasite's habitat in 8 days without raising your pulse over 110, which was, at the time, a medical requirement. Days 1 and 2, the movers packed her. And I want to emphasize the tone of it, because the tone was the point. Nothing thrown, nothing broken, nothing dumped. Every dress in tissue paper, every shoe in its box. The closet, her closet, the size of my first apartment, inventoried item by item, photographed, wrapped, sealed, numbered. 206 boxes. I treated her exactly like what she had revealed to be, a vendor whose contract was terminated. You don't smash a vendor's equipment. You return it, palletized with documentation. Day 3, the boxes went into a storage unit across town, a 10 by 10, climate-controlled. I'm not a monster. Kashmir has rights. 3 months prepaid, the key and the unit number went into an envelope with Gerald. Days 4 and 5 were the money. The joint checking account, which I had funded solo for 6 years, was closed properly. Her half of the actual joint funds calculated by Gerald to the dollar and moved into an account in her name, because I was not going to give her lawyer a single legitimate grievance. Everything discretionary, the cards, the authorized user accounts, the memberships, the trainer's retainer, because yes, I had been paying him a retainer, canceled. Gerald timed the card cancellations on day 9, her flight home. I'd like to tell you that timing was legal strategy. It was not. It was the one indulgence I allowed myself. The thought of her at the airport duty-free, mid-swipe. Day 6, the SUV. The Range Rover lease was in my name, my company's actually. The leasing company was delighted to schedule an early return. It was collected from the driveway on day 7. The garage looked enormous. Day 8, I did the last part myself, alone, slowly, per my cardiologist's lifting restrictions. Her renovations had filled my house with her taste. Fine. The fine staging furniture she'd bought went to consignment. The art she'd chosen went to storage with the rest of her. What remained was stone, glass, light, and echo. The house stripped back to what I'd built before her. It looked, for the first time in 6 years, honest. Then I printed one photograph from the iPad on good paper, 8 by 10. Not a photo of them. She could argue with a photo of them, spin it, caption it. I printed her own screenshot, the text thread from the night of my heart attack. He had a heart attack today, of all weeks. To, is he going to be okay? To, they said probably. Anyway, I'm still coming. I've earned this. I taped it to the bare living room wall, at eye level, centered, where her 7-foot abstract painting used to hang. Under it, one note card, one line, my handwriting. You were right. You've earned this. A. Then I locked my house and went to Ruth's. Day 10, her flight landed at 2:20 p.m. I know the cards died somewhere over the Indian Ocean because my phone, before I handed the whole circus to Gerald, had logged 4 declined transaction alerts from an airport lounge in Doha. At 4:05 p.m., the Ring camera sent me a notification. I was on Ruth's porch with a blanket over my legs, like a man 20 years older, which I'd earned, drinking the decaf I'd been sentenced to. I opened the app. Elena at my front door, airport hair again, the Remoa beside her. Her key still worked. Gerald's advice, changing the locks before the filing, would have handed her a talking point. The door opened. She walked in. The camera in the foyer caught the next part. She stopped 4 steps in. You could see her understand the acoustics before she understood the room, the way her heels suddenly echoed. She said my name once, and the house said it back to her, empty. She walked from room to room, getting faster, opening doors onto no one, her voice rising to no one. 11,000 square feet of echo that she decorated and never once paid for. Then the living room. The camera watched her find the wall, one small white rectangle where the painting used to hang. She crossed the room slowly. She stood in front of her own words, printed in high resolution, taped at eye level for a long time, 40 seconds give or take. She did not touch it. Then she took out her phone, and my phone on Ruth's porch did not ring because her number had gone to Gerald days ago. I'm told she called 31 times before she tried the text she eventually sent, which also went to Gerald, and which began, "This is real. There's been a huge misunderstanding." 14 months, 206 boxes, and a receipt from a seaplane. The misunderstanding was mine, and I'd corrected it. The divorce is proceeding the way divorces proceed when one party owns the house from before the marriage, and the other party documented her own case against herself on a synced iPad, slowly, quietly, and in one direction. Dimitri, I hear, stopped returning her texts around the time the retainer did. Here's how I'll leave it. A widowmaker teaches you the real inventory of your life. Lying on that office carpet, I begged for more time, and I meant time for my marriage, my beautiful wife, my full house. The cardiologists cleared one artery. The iPad cleared the rest. I do my rehab 3 mornings a week. My resting heart rate is better than it's been in a decade. The house is quiet, and Ruth comes for dinner on Sundays, and I am learning the difference between an empty house and an honest one. They tell you a heart attack happens when something vital gets blocked by something that built up slowly, over years, unnoticed, until it nearly kills you. I survived 2 of those this spring. I only needed the stent for 1,